With the resounding success of Doom in 1993, id Software didn't even have to think about what their next project will be. Of course, the team and the fans wanted more Doom, so work began on the sequel. The plan was simple. Doom 2 has to take everything fans loved and crank it up to 11. Unlike most sequels that simply retread familiar ground, Doom 2 expanded the formula in thrilling, chaotic ways. Sure, Doom 2 didn't have a dramatic graphical overhaul that some sequels boast, but it compensated with level complexity, intensity, and more intricate combat scenarios. It refined the mechanics of the original and added enough new features to keep players engaged in an unrelenting battle against hell itself. In 1994, Doom 2 Hell on Earth made its debut on MS-DOS. So let's explore the abstract levels. Let's fight our way through even more demons and discuss these aspects so that we can answer one question. Is this game still worth playing? Let's see. Back at last, after days of hard fighting in space, you've returned home on well-earned leave. When the alien invasion struck Mars, you were the first on the scene. By killing, and killing, you won. You stopped the invasion, saved Mars base, and became a war hero. But that's all behind you now. You've quit the military and are heading home. Your drop pod lands with a crunch. You open her up and look out. Damn! The city ahead is on fire. What the devil is going on? Not again. You can feel it. It's all starting again just like on Mars. The wise men of humanity have evolved a plan to save what's left of the human race. They have built enormous ships to carry the remaining people into space, safely away from the ruined world. Unfortunately, Earth's only ground spaceport has just been taken over by the demons. They've instituted a sort of force field, a flame barrier over the port. No ships can land or take off. You gotta go back into action. The pathetic remnants of Earth soldiers are making an assault on the invaders at the spaceport. You and your comrades make their attack. Soon, brave men drop like flies. You lose track of your friends, though sometimes you can hear them scream when they die. And the sounds of combat echo from deep within the starbase. Something hisses with rage from the steel tunnels ahead. They know you're here. They have no pity, no mercy, take no quarter, and crave none. They're the perfect enemy in a way. No one's left but you. You and them. Here we are again, back to basics with only a pistol just like in Doom 1, but this time things are indeed kicked up a notch. Right out of the gate, an old buddy, the former human, is right there. Instead of going in guns blazing, it's smarter to turn around, grab the chainsaw, and start the carnage the right way. We're not just knee-deep in the dead this time, as we barely start the first map entryway when imps are already breathing down our necks. Yeah, we also had imps on the hangar in Doom 1, but there are a few more of them this time. And of course, it wouldn't be Doom without a few good secrets, and in this level, after finding them, we're treated to gems like the rocket launcher and the shotgun. As opposed to the first game, Doom 2 was launched with a single episode named Hell on Earth, which contains 32 levels, including the 2 secret levels, just for good measure. Technically, you could group the levels based on sky texture and theme, which gives each set a distinct vibe. The first 11 levels, for example, are known as the Outpost and Underground maps. Furthermore, this set has a nice little narrative thread where we have to disable the previously mentioned barrier that's keeping the last human ships trapped on Earth. On to the underhalls, where we sludge through sewers crawling with zombies. Furthermore, another old friend makes a brief, thanks to some explosive battles, appearance, the demon or Pinky. This level is not significant just because it's the reintroduction of the first melee creature, but also because in a small room, one that is optional, you can find the absolute star of the Doom 2 arsenal, the combat shotgun, or the super shotgun, the only new weapon of Doom 2. Since I've never played this game before deciding to review it, I have to admit I was looking forward to seeing what new deadly firepower it will introduce. When I discovered that the combat shotgun is the only new weapon, I have to admit I was a bit disappointed. That being said, the super shotgun itself is absolutely not disappointing, and it quickly became my go-to for turning demons into red mist. Using my new workhorse, I blast through all those that stand in my way with relative ease, until on the gauntlet I encounter a new enemy. Another absolutely terrifying zombie. Not because it menacingly approaches me in some tight corridor, and not because it quickly lunges at me, but because this zombie has a freaking chain gun. In essence, the former commando is an upgraded version of the former sergeant, just one that is capable of firing 2,000 rounds per minute. In the first Doom game, the former human-type enemies are not a threat at all, but now, seeing a chain gunner instantly inspires fear. There is an upside, however. He always drops a chain gun, which is an old favorite of mine. Speaking of discoveries, the third level also teaches us a quirk of Doom 2's physics. Running sideways is faster than running forward. Yes, you heard that right. To grab a secret, you actually have to run sideways, a move that's somehow more effective than just sprinting straight at it. Actually, you can get this secret by running straight at this abstract thing that's supposedly a well, but it just feels easier to run sideways. Plus, there are other secrets where running sideways is not optional, but mandatory. A bit later in the waste tunnels, the secrets keep on coming. Number 1, there's a chamber that can only be accessed via an elevator that activates after you interact and open a certain wall. Yeah, I know that's a bit weird, but this is Doom, this is the norm. Anyway, down in that chamber you find one of the most important weapons in the game, the plasma gun. And just when I thought things couldn't get any better, I found a Berserk pack. In Doom 1, this thing was my pride and joy. One punch or two and enemies were basically demon fondue. But here, in Doom 2, it's less about demon smashing and more like a glorified health kit. Sure, it's great for a quick boost to 100 HP, but try getting punchy with a Hell Knight without any vulnerability and he'll show you why fists aren't always the answer. Yeah, this recolor of a Baron of Hell might not be as strong as the noble it serves, but it is still dangerous. The Hell Knight does go down pretty quickly, with 3 shots from the super shotgun being enough. Revenants, however, make their bony debut on map 6 and are definitely not pushovers. Luckily, there's a shiny new power-up, the Mega Sphere, which cranks both health and armor up to 200, and this is an absolute lifesaver when Revenants are trying to play tag with homing missiles. As you can see, the number of please don't hurt me enemies is skyrocketing and it just keeps climbing. The next level opens with a lovely welcoming committee of mancubi. Yes, that's the plural, just like succubi. Don't think you're safe after killing these beefy bastards from hell, because that's when the arachnotrons make an appearance. First off, all the classic Doom 1 enemies are back. We got our former humans, sergeants, imps, demons, specters, barons of hell, cacodemons, and of course, the annoying as ever, lost souls. I'm not going into detail about them again, as I've already covered them in the Doom 1 video. Instead, let's talk about the new guys. We've got the former Commando and the Hell Knight. As I've mentioned, the Commando is basically former Sergeant 2.0, now with more bullets. And the Hell Knight is like a Baron of Hell who finally got on board with portion control. Dangerous? Yes. But then things get real with the Revenant. The Revenant's mention in the game manual is pretty metal. Apparently when a demon dies, they pick him up, dust him off, wire him some combat gear, and send him back into battle. No rest for the wicked, eh? You wish your missiles did what his can do. Beyond the cool info about why the Revenant is called a Revenant, we also have this part about the missiles, which refers to the fact that some of his missiles are the target-seeking variety. Meanwhile, my rockets can barely hit the wall if it moves too fast. Up close, he's not too bad, but from afar, those heat-seeking missiles turn him into a major pain. The Mancubus is a huge hulking creature that has flamethrowers for arms. He's extremely dangerous, to put it mildly. The best strategy with these guys is to shoot and take cover. Trust me, just stay out of his line of fire. Arachnotrons, mini spider demons. Dangerous, but they do pause after you hit them, so you can at least stop them mid-attack. I like to think of this as Hell's way of giving you a break, however brief. And then we have the Archvile, which is Hell's resident necromancer. This guy can not only set you on fire, but also raise dead enemies. Seriously, this is one top priority. He's worse than a fire starter, he's an undead starter. Sure, the Archvile is a top priority, but so is my most hated new enemy, the Pain Elemental. I despise this thing. I hate it so much that I'd rather not even talk about it, but here we go. This less intimidating Caco demon with tiny T-Rex arms doesn't really hurt you directly. It does something much worse than that. It keeps spitting out lost souls. I hated lost souls in the first game. I hate them in the second game, and now there's a creature that if left alive and in your vicinity keeps on spitting them out. It's like hell's overactive vending machine of misery and frustration. I hate it. Doom 2 has no new bosses, outside of the final boss, who is a wall and voiced by John Romero. Other than that, all the bosses from the first game make an appearance. Although not as bosses at the end of a set of maps, usually they're just there, somewhere. Overall, the new additions are pretty good, with one major exception: they're dangerous and they absolutely up the ante on action and difficulty. Thanks Doom 2, really feeling the love, for the most part. Up until the ninth map named Dead Simple, which actually is Dead Simple, the level design is mostly okay. You can get lost, but most maps are manageable and the secrets aren't too tricky to find. However, Refueling Station cranks up the game's bigger is better philosophy to a whole new extreme. With a staggering 261 enemies, 100 objects and 18 secrets to find, plus the massive size of the level itself, discovering all those secrets on Ultraviolence means pretty much covering every corner of the map and wading through endless swarms fighting nearly every enemy. It's not the most intricate map, but the sheer volume of enemies makes Refueling Station feel like a brutal endurance test. We'll talk more about the level design soon, but first, let's save humanity from the rampaging demons and zombies. On level 11, or Circle of Death, after being introduced to the Archvile and fighting a few pain elementals, we killed the Arachnotron guarding the force field and shut it down, letting the remaining human ships evacuate. Now you are the only human left on the face of the planet. You sit back and wait for death, content that you have saved your species. But then, Earth Control beams down a message from space. Sensors have located the source of the alien invasion. If you go there, you may be able to block their entry. The alien base is in the heart of your own home city, not far from the starport. Slowly and painfully, you get up and return to the fray. And thus begins the city chapter of Hell on Earth, with levels that have an urban backdrop. The factory, level 12, is mostly fine. If by fine we mean brutal traps. The first trap we encounter is after using the teleporter to reach a secret, where we will be thrown in the middle of an extremely tight room surrounded by 4 imps. This is actually a surprisingly deadly trap, if you're unprepared. Then there's the part where we have to activate a switch in order to reach a secret area. However, after interacting with the switch, surprise! A demon closet with a bunch of Caco demons opens up. And just when you're catching your breath, you're teleported to a spot where you have a Mancubus right behind you. This type of setup with unexpected ambushes and brutal traps quickly becomes the norm. But for all the factory's tricks, things go from bad to worse on the next map, Downtown. Here the designers went so far as to put a giant arrow on the ground to help players figure out where to go. I'm pretty sure this means that the level is a bit convoluted. Even then, even with the arrow, once inside of this building, it's easy to miss the hidden shaft you need to drop through in order to get the first key, especially since a teleporter in the same room is bound to grab your attention first. When I first played this map, it took me a very long time to complete it. Granted, I was looking for all 8 secrets, but that's beside the point. You know what, let's start going into detail about the level design. I said in my Doom 1 video that I don't like the abstract design, and I'm sticking to that. Unfortunately for me, Doom 2 is also sticking to the abstract design. I also mentioned that I don't like labyrinthian level design and having to backtrack through empty or mostly empty corridors. Unfortunately for me, Doom 2 loves its mazes and you will have to go back through the same places over and over again, especially if you look for secrets. More so than in Doom 1 because the levels are larger and much more complex. The good news is that the levels are larger and much more complex, which also means that the players will get more action, and this is an action-first game, so in that regard, mission accomplished. I have to give Doom 2 a fair shake though, because even with all my frustrations, there were a few levels that genuinely made me smile. Starting off with the Courtyard. I found this level fun because there is a giant battle right in the middle of the level. Plus, there are 2 invulnerabilities that you can use in conjunction with the BFG and easily turn demons inside out. It's great. Then we have Battles of Fun. I admire the creativity of the level. Explosive battles aren't just background props anymore. They're obstacles, traps, weapons, and just part of the chaos in general. Sure, it's not very realistic or immersive, and I don't like the chain gunners that can snipe me, or the pain elemental room, but you can't have them all. The spirit world is another level I really like, especially after learning how to navigate it. You see, on this level you can very easily just run past a lot of demons, including a spider mastermind, pick up some invulnerabilities, and then melt everything with the plasma gun or BFG. We're done with the good, now for the bad, starting with the refueling station due to its endless enemies and scattered secrets. Then we have the city maps that I found to be pure headache material. The courtyard was the only city map that I didn't despise. Downtown, the Citadel, and Gotcha were particularly maddening. All 3 of those maps are confusing. All 3 maps are long and dull, especially if you're looking for secrets. Plus, I hate some of the enemy placements like the demons that can body block you on the Citadel or the surprise archvile on Gotcha. Okay, Gotcha does have a giant battle between a cyber demon and a spider mastermind, but you can bypass this cool little highlight, so what's the point? That being said, even the 3 maps I just mentioned are nowhere near as bad as Industrial Zone. This was probably my worst nightmare. The labyrinthian elements are not quite as present on this map as on others. However, the backtracking sure is. Then we have teleportation to various places, and I love that in the first game, especially on maps like Unholy Cathedral and Limbo. All in all, I hated this confusing mess, and I hated finding all the secrets on this map. Furthermore, this level is filled with hit scan enemies and quite a couple of dangerous creatures, primarily Caco demons and pain elementals, in rather small areas. Plus, there's that one Hell Knight trap. All of these things, even combined, are nothing in comparison to the worst aspect of the map, namely how to claim one of the secrets. In order to get all 11 secrets, you have to get a pain elemental to follow you, position yourself in the door to a teleporter, and then have the pain elemental push you in the secret. If that sounds easy, it's not. There are also 2 dishonorable mentions. First is Nirvana, the first of the Hell maps. Personally, I didn't really think it was that bad. There are a couple of questionable rooms, it does try to trap you a couple of times, and then there's the projectile obstacle course that's mildly annoying, I guess. Even so, I didn't think it was that bad. Then why mention it, you ask? Well, the moment the Doom fandom wiki page says in some online Doom forums, discussion boards, this was considered the worst Doom 2 stage created, then the map should be mentioned. Second dishonorable mention is the Chasm.
Get ready. You are leaving. Now.
Which is mostly tightrope walking over acid pits. Slip and it's a straight trip to the acid pool. Or worse, get pushed off by some of the demons running around, or floating around I should say, and you will surely be annoyed. Obviously, you won't instantly die, for the most part, but you will lose a lot of time. Not my idea of fun. Back to my least favorite map for a second, Industrial Zone, because it does have one positive, as it's the map where you find the exit to the secret level, Wolfenstein. And not only is it a Wolfenstein-themed level, but we also have a new enemy to gun down, SS troops. It's a pretty straightforward level that reminds me of some of the first levels in Wolfenstein. And that's because it is. This map is a remake of the first level of Wolfenstein 3D. Furthermore, this map leads to the super secret level where we find a reference to Commander Keen and a cyber demon. At the end of the 20th map, Gotcha, the last of the city maps, we get a bit of story. You are at the corrupt heart of the city, surrounded by the corpses of your enemies. You see no way to destroy the creature's entryway through this side, so you clench your teeth and plunge through it. There must be a way to close it on the other side. What do you care if you have to go through hell to get to it? We've already covered quite a couple of what are called the hell maps, so instead let's talk about a couple of different subjects. Starting with the weapons. So the super shotgun is the only new weapon, and I mentioned that it became my new workhorse, so let me explain why. Number 1, damage. It's insane. With a couple of pulls of the trigger, that big demon you're squaring up with, gone. Number 2, spread. Oh, a horde of zombies? Consider them handled. And finally, sound. this bad boy sounds glorious, like firing a cannon every time. And the reload sound? Chef's kiss. The only downsides are that it guzzles 2 shells at a time and that its range isn't that great. But who needs long range when you're up close and personal? Speaking of range, what about those sniping moments? Well, you've got the chain gun and maybe the regular shotgun if you squint. Not a lot of sniping options here, but who cares? This is Doom 2. You're rarely more than a dash away from something that needs shooting. Also, every weapon from Doom 1 is back. The plasma rifle, rocket launcher, and of course, the BFG 9000. I've already covered these in the previous video, so no point in repeating myself. That being said, I will mention something that I've observed about the BFG in this game. Since Doom 2 is much more challenging than Doom 1, I got to use the BFG a lot more. And it seems that while this weapon deals a metric ton of damage, it's also somewhat unreliable, as sometimes it just doesn't. It's very bizarre to see what's supposed to be the biggest and baddest in a badass line of weapons sometimes launch duds. There were moments where I'd hit an enemy with the BFG, switch to the super shotgun to conserve plasma, only to find that the enemy seemed entirely unharmed. I still love the BFG, but now I see it as a maybe get out of a sticky situation card rather than a guaranteed one. Since we're talking about small things when it comes to the old weapons, I would like to mention that one of my favorite weapons is now, well, not as useful as it used to be. The weapon in question being, of course, the chainsaw. Due to the increased number of enemies and due to how dangerous some of them are, charging in a group of demons is a lot more dangerous than it was in Doom 1. The chainsaw still has its moments to shine, but truth be told, those are far and few between. So with one new weapon, more complex levels, and an expanded enemy roster, how's the action overall? In short, it's fantastic. The fast movement, intense combat, large groups of enemies, and occasional open spaces make the gameplay thrilling. There's nothing like using the super shotgun to shred a wave of zombies, then switching to the plasma rifle to melt Hell Knights or Caco demons. Almost every element of the game enhances the action, though getting lost or backtracking can sometimes feel like taking a time out mid-fight. Not ideal, but it's Doom. You're never that far from action. And then we have the power-ups. While sometimes hit or miss, they are still mostly exciting. Some are lifesavers, like the Soul Sphere, the Mega Sphere, and the Invulnerability, who are little miracle workers when you're wading through Hellspawn. Being close to that 200 armor and 200 HP maximum can be extremely important, as the game combines enemy numbers with big threats, traps, and environmental hazards. Unfortunately, just like in the first game, most of the power-ups are very niche and not very useful. What's worse, as I've already mentioned, is that my former favorite pickup, the Berserk pack, is now almost completely useless and little more than a glorified health pack. Gone are the days of fist-punching demons into oblivion. The backpack as well has less significance, as all 32 levels of Doom 2 are part of the same episode, and since the backpack lasts until the end of the episode or until you die, you won't be looking forward to finding this pickup with the same excitement as in the original. Sure, you still get ammo for all your weapons, and that can be quite impactful, but no pickup in Doom 2 is as impactful and fun as something that id will develop a bit later for Quake. The last 10 maps represent the Hell set, and honestly I like the levels here a lot more than the levels of the City set. Two of the maps I mentioned enjoying are part of this chapter, Battles of Fun and the Spirit World. Sure, Nirvana and the Chasm are also present in this part of the game, but well, again, you can't have them all. On our way to fight the end boss, we have to get past the Monster Condo, a pretty good map, one that I initially thought I really enjoyed. It's filled with a lot of dangerous enemies, and it's also filled with a lot of invulnerability pickups. This level was quite fun, up until I discovered what you have to do in order to get one of the secrets. So you go into this room that was decorated by Vlad the Impaler,
Bine ați venit!
Fight a bunch of pain elementals, yay, activate a switch and find a secret area, nice. However, there's another secret in this exact same corridor, and in order to get the credit for that secret, you have to build up speed and run past the teleporter at the end. What you have to do is stick close to a wall and run at an angle, and eventually you will get past the teleporter. Sounds easy, and if you're lucky, it actually is. If not, you'll be stuck here for quite some time, doing the same stupid thing over and over and over and over over. You know what? Let's just finish the game and fight a giant wall. Yeah, the final boss is so massive that you only see its head. Luckily, the demon's brain is exposed, and that is our target. All we have to do is go on a platform and as it raises, fire 3 rockets inside the small gap where the brain is exposed. Sounds simple, it's not, because the boss continuously summons random demons, and if you get unlucky you can very easily be overwhelmed by pain elementals, revenants, and archviles. There is a secret to this boss fight though. If you manage to run sideways from the switch that activates the raising platform and land on top of it, you will be able to hit the brain 2 times, making the fight a lot easier, especially since the first time the platform raises, it does so slower than subsequent times. It might even be possible to triple tap the boss in one go, but I never managed to do that. The horrendous visage of the biggest demon you've ever seen crumbles before you after you pump your rockets into his exposed brain. The monster shrivels up and dies, its thrashing limbs devastating untold miles of hell's surface. You've done it. The invasion is over. Earth is saved. Hell is a wreck. You wonder where bad folks will go when they die now. Wiping the sweat from your forehead, you begin the long trek back home. Rebuilding Earth ought to be a lot more fun than ruining it was. Alright, let's talk about the Master Levels. Released on the 26th of December 1995, this was Doom 2's very first and for a long while only expansion pack. It contains 21 levels including the secret map. Sadly, unlike the main campaign, there's zero storyline here. It's just a grab bag of levels you can pick and play in any order, at least if you're using the Doom 2 Enhanced version like I did. I dipped into a few of these levels except for Paradox because they'll charge me $40 for something that used to exist in a previous game, and well, they're exactly what you'd expect. More Doom, more corridors, more demons. If you love the original, hey, they're there for you, just waiting to be played. If not, well, they're still there. They exist, it's great that they exist, and now with that thrilling revelation out of the way, we can move on. When it comes to the narrative, I have to say that there's a bit more story here than there was in the original. But the real charm is how the story moves along with the action. We start by landing back on Earth and surprise, it's invaded by the same hellish demons that had a field day on Mars. Now, Doom 2 could have stopped right there. We've got Earth as a battlefield, we've got Action Man back in action, that's all we really needed, right? But the game throws in an extra twist. Humanity's last survivors are desperately trying to escape, and it's up to you to give them a chance. Then, to wrap it all up, we're heading straight back to hell. Again, it's simple, but it's Doom, so that's exactly the right kind of simple. The plot is just an excuse to get us ripping and tearing through demons, and honestly, that's all the story really needs to be. No complaints here. As for immersion, one of my favorite video game elements, well, Doom 2 is both a little better and a little worse than the original. I was pleasantly surprised by the city backgrounds in some of the maps, especially downtown. The buildings actually look human-made. Imagine that demonic chaos on a landscape that almost looks like your neighborhood. Well, I am Eastern European, so that's not quite unimaginable. Even though I still don't particularly like downtown, at least it looks more interesting than just more abstract demon mazes. That said, Doom 2 has some serious mood killers with its level design, especially in the city maps. I lost track of how many times I just wanted the level to be done, or honestly, for the game itself to be done. Doom 1 never quite pushed me to that level of is it over yet desperation. But hey, when a game sends you to hell and back this often, a little frustration is probably par for the course. Before the conclusion, let's see what the reviews at the time had to say about Doom 2. Next Generation, January 1995. After the runaway success of the original Doom, it seems that id is content to sit on its laurels rather than push the envelope further. Doom 2 looks more like an add-on scenario than a sequel. Okay, so there's a slight graphics upgrade, greater variance in scenery texture maps and bad guys, a double-barreled shotgun and a handful of new enemies. But basically the game is nothing more than a collection of new maps for the first title. Now that the first-person interface has become the design of choice for the entire industry, id will need to find new innovations or it will quickly find it's playing catch-up in its own game niche. GameSpot, 1st of May 1996. Even with its darkly entertaining firepower and pleasantly grotesque menagerie, the game has its flaws, like an unrelenting and simplistic soundtrack that gets pretty annoying over time. Don't worry though, the game's sound effects are as brilliant as they were in the original and remain one of its best features. More bothersome, especially for fans of the first game, is that the repetitive action in this nasty and brutish sequel just isn't as addictive as it was in the original hit. Doom 2 doesn't build the same visceral or emotional connection because it doesn't enhance the original experience in any original way. Compared to Hexen, for example, which broadens the heretic legend, Doom 2 adds little substance and no plot to its predecessor. Space Marine saves Earth by killing monsters isn't a plot. Computer Gaming World issue 124, published November 1994. Like any extremely popular phenomenon, Doom has garnered no small number of detractors. Beyond those who complain that it's too violent for society's good, people criticize Doom for being overly simplistic in gameplay, for essentially being a 90s version of Pac-Man. id Software's level designer Sandy Peterson freely admits that Doom is little more than a souped-up version of Whack-A-Mole. To most Doom fans, the response to these criticisms is, what's your point? If I might presume to translate, they're saying, yes, Doom is simplistic in the nuts and bolts of its gameplay, but it's one hell of an experience. Doom's beauty is not in rich character interaction, resource management, or realistic physical modeling. Doom 2's beauty is in the frantic action and sinister atmosphere of its world. The gritty, gory graphics, lighting effects, the sounds all combine to create an atmosphere that can actually elicit fear, or at least a few startled jumps of surprise. If you know what to expect from Doom 2, which I hope you do by now, you won't be disappointed. By the time you've battled your way through Doom 2's level and met the ultimate incarnation of evil at the end, you'll have sucked out the essence of the Doom experience, swirled it around in your mouth, gargled, and spit. If you are like me, you will feel a bit wrung out, spent, satisfied, and ready to leave the corridors of Doom behind you and move on. Next stop, Quake. Given all we've covered, let's finally add things up and answer the question we posted at the start. The enemies in Doom 2 are great. I actually criticized Doom 1 for having too few enemies. Well, it looks like Doom 2 rectified that. And, might I add, it managed to bring in some interesting and mostly unique new creatures for us to gun down. Minus the pain elemental, that thing still sucks. When it comes to the level design, no, just no. Sure, there were some maps that I liked, but overall I still dislike the level design, the mazes, the backtracking, and the sucker punches. While I did find the super shotgun awesome, I would have liked a few more new weapons. A nice and easy 3. That's the magic number, so I would have liked more weapons. That being said, the guns are still amazing. Action, just like in the first game, it's perfect. The game has very little story, but it doesn't need a complex narrative, so what we have is quite acceptable. When it comes to the immersion, I can't say that it's not an immersive game for what it is, but I can't lie and say that Doom 2 is as immersive as Metro, for example. Seeing as this is the case, then is Doom 2 Hell on Earth still worth playing? Yes. And no. Shocking, I know. If you're a veteran of old-school first-person shooters or boomer shooters, then yes, definitely you will find a challenge here and you will find fun here, despite some frustrating parts. However, if you're more accustomed to newer first-person shooters like Call of Duty or Battlefield, you might not find Doom 2 either that impressive or fun, especially playing on some of the higher difficulties. Well, that's my conclusion. This game can swing either way depending on the player. But what do you think of Doom 2? Did you play it back in the day, or maybe you've played a newer version like I did? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, I hope to see you next time, have an awesome day.